And you can see the begonias, petunias are going, but look, slug damage. Hello, I need to start off with something quite serious. This big disc in the sky, it's called the sun. Britain is stuck in perpetual spring. Wow! The rain, but look at this, glorious. Sun's out, harsh lighting on my face. Love that for me. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to plant up 2 exotic pots. And what that does is when you have a raised little kind of bed like this and you've got the brickwork, or however, whatever you have to kind of hold the soil back, sometimes wish that you want to continue the border in some areas. You know how when you cut a border into lawn and you might do some curves, you might do some weird angles, not just a straight line. And that kind of is where pots can come into handy, and kind of give you that effect that you don't necessarily have this kind of straight clinical line. Okay, and if we do that right, of course, you'll get a continuation of your border scheme. And sometimes, a thing or a variable that goes maybe underrepresented is your kind of air, the coolness, the dampness of a space. And the best way I can describe that is when you transition from the edge of a woodland. Let's say that there's, you can see right the sky above you, and then you step into a very heavily canopied forest, and you instantly feel the air change. You feel it be cooler in there, you feel it be more damp. And there might be some areas of your garden that do get sun, but you don't get this great air circulation coming through, and it does tend to stay a little bit damp and a little bit more moist. Okay, so it is a little variable to consider. We've chosen a couple things. Oh, actually, let me show you the pot. So standard old 30 odd centimeter, yucky soil. I saw in the news recently people are getting quite sick from not wearing gloves, and I'm a habitual non-glove wearer, so I'm trying my best. However, I still like to touch things, I still like to be tactile. Today we're sunny, but we're a little bit cooler, and we do retain a bit more moisture, so the planting is going to be a little bit different. And we're in the tropical little area, so we want to make this exotic and we want to make this tropical. So I'm going to show you now, again, same kind of thing as before, rule of threes, so 3 plants. We've gone with the taller pot, and I'm going to be honest, it's because that's what I had laying around. Sometimes you just have to make do. I didn't want to go and spend the extra money, and don't feel like you have to. It doesn't have to always be a new pot. In fact, one of the pots here has a giant, about a 6-inch kind of crack in it. Fine. This is, again, what we're doing is bedding, okay, annuals, with actually a little wild card. But what we also have is trailing, so you won't really see the pot. And as well, again, think about your perspectives when you're building these things. And we're not really, or shouldn't hopefully, notice the pot so much when we do that. Only when we go far away and we see that as a perspective. But hey ho. This is our selection. Boom. Look at this. Yep, begonia. Another begonia. However, this one's slightly different to the one we used for the bed behind me. You can see these lovely, lovely leaves. So this is Bovilia Hot Pink. Hot Pink. Now notice the price there. Oh, there we go. Notice the price. These were actually $248, and the retail was £8 each. This is a good time to go to your garden centres and find annuals on sale. Because of the year it has been, and because of where we're at in the season. Now look, you might think, well, why would I waste money on something that, it's not going to last me now? And well, it's almost, half the year is done. These things can keep going until November. I am going to assume, like last year, it's going to be a long and mild season. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that things like the dahlias, like the begonias, the annuals that we typically tend to use, impatiens, they might be able to keep going until October, until November, Dahlias will kind of keep chugging along, although at a less kind of florific pace, right up until the first frosts. So there is still value to be had. So if you haven't kind of been to your local garden centre because you think, oh, it might not be worth it, go and have a look for these sales, and create a display, because that's about 3 months, 3 to 4 months you still have that, you know, of colour that these things can give you. But anyway, so this is kind of our, and again, when we're talking about threes and building pots in threes, this is the star. This is the thing that I thought, wow, look at this thing. It is nice, beautiful. And of course, the other key factor was it was cheap buy, and a pretty decent sized thing there. So we'll still be able to kind of, you know, we won't be waiting. Now, the accenty, contrasty thing that kind of pairs with it. Bum, ba, bum, 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 bum. Look at this. So this is Petunia Black Satin. Ooh. Wait, is that upside down? Petunia Black Satin. And this is somewhat trailing. Begonia there is somewhat trailing. And again, you see what I mean by it doesn't maybe necessarily matter sometimes about what pot. This is a cheap plastic pot, the cheapest plastic pot that you can buy. Okay? Hopefully, in a few weeks' time, maybe a month's time, it'll be covered with this and that and another thing. But I thought, you know, when we put these two things together, and again, this isn't earth-shattering. We've got two very different flower shapes. We have two very different leaf types. And you might not think, maybe it's not the best of bedfellows. But pink and black, this is where I think this shines. I just love this rich, almost black, with that pink thing. You never really see in the English garden such harsh, this real kind of, whoa, harsh. I've seen it done with tulips. You can have a white and black tulip mix in spring, you know, that can be quite nice. You can have pink and black tulip mix, and I've seen that before, and I thought, yeah, nice. Maybe not my personal favourite, but nice. The things we have to consider is that this is going to pick out the foliage of the plants that are going to be near the pot. Now I'll get up and show you in a sec once I show you the third thing, okay? So we're going to have a look at how these plants actually accentuate. And again, that pink is picking up on that fuchsia, if you can remember, that little fuchsia that we've got right behind me. Sometimes you have to think that we're extending that border. I'm going to have a pot near the border. How can I still play around with what's in the border? And in a way, what I'm saying is don't isolate the pot when you're at the garden centre choosing your things for the pot. Because the pot is not going to be, in a sense, a specimen pot on a patio or a centerpiece, this is going to kind of, or what we're trying to do here is just extend either the container garden or the small raised bed in a small garden. With that in mind, think actually what's in your border and try and still play around with that idea. In fact, you can even replicate the same plant or planting scheme that you have in other containers to give you that sense of the natural, or, you know, just to kind of give you what seems like a larger bed or border space. This is where we're going to be controversial. Sometimes things don't necessarily have to be from the same type, from the same kind of, how should I say this? From the same playbook, from the same genre. Sometimes we can infuse something different, okay? Now, you'll see what I mean. Because this is our third. So this is the kind of thread that ties together what we have in the begonia and in this petunia. It's sage, okay? And it's this tricolor sage. If you want it, Salvia officinalis tricolor. There. Now you can get these in somewhat more, and I've seen this one where it's like a kind of almost like a hosta, the coloring, like hosta holy guacamole, or there's one over there, John's Glory, which have this kind of avocado-esque rich green, and then you've got this kind of lighter green. And there's a tricolour sage that has that same kind of idea, and I've always looked at it and thought there's something interesting to be done there in terms of creating a scheme, a planting scheme, where you have a jungle aesthetic but with herbs and vegetables. Because some vegetables, like cucumbers even, or you know, pumpkins, make these kind of somewhat exotic, giant, big leaves. So, you know, think outside the box sometimes. But you can see why when we start to kind of piece these things together. I love the darkness of this coming through that. And then we've got the pink. So, can you see what I mean? So I have moved, and that is to show you what I mean by continuation of your border and why we've chose these 3 specific things. So again, what we want is this petunia to start cascading. You can see the salvia, the petunia. Now I've not potted this up yet. I've just put it kind of in the pot at a higher soil level so you can see. But you can see that begonia, pink and lovely and beautiful. Can you see the fuchsia just there? So we're picking up on that. The leaf shape, remember, we've not forgotten our dahlia. I mean, look how similar those things are. Same thing with the geranium. And we have that kind of blue coming through as well just there. Wait, where are we? There we go. If you can see. And you can see the sage picking up on the smokiness of the dahlia, of that geranium. And same with that petunia, picking up on the smoke. You know, it might not end up resting there. It might go, you know, somewhat like there. You know, somewhat there. I don't know. I'm yet to decide, but that kind of gives you the idea of what I'm saying. I do think that's a cool pot. So you might be thinking, why would you put sage with those things? Sage wants to be dry. It wants to be absolutely blasted by sun. Kind of. I mean, in my experience with sage, you kind of do need to stay on top of the watering for it to establish. Once it's established, sure, you can almost kind of walk away from it. You know, minor maintenance here and there. But what we've done, essentially, is we have put things that do enjoy sun, or that do kind of prosper in sun, at least in the amount of hours that we get here. We might not get this super volcanic, super fast growing sage, but then we ask the question, is that what we want here? No, I don't think so. We just want a cool, interesting little accent piece to our exotic scheme. And the beauty about this is that this is the purpose that this little sage is serving us now. Okay? In terms of watering, we're just going to stay on top of it. We're never going to let this pot get too wet. We've got fantastic drainage in these pots, by the way, very important. This isn't a terracotta pot with a single little hole in the middle. This is, you know, basically 50-50. I've cut extra. Is empty space at the bottom of this pot. I want water to run through, okay, for that reason. But they kind of will work. We'll stay on top of it. It will never get super dry and it will never get super moist. If you can do that, if you can really say that you can do that, you too can maybe start to think a little bit more outside the box in what you do, okay? It does require care, and it does require you to really sit there and think, all right, how much time can I put into this? If I wanted something to pot there and leave it and walk away, I probably wouldn't have come up with this combination. Now, the sage will be lifted from this pot. Again, those 2 things are annuals. Will I try and overwinter a petunia? But either way, the sage, we're going to take the pot, we're going to overwinter it somewhere where it doesn't really get rained on. And then next year, we can lift the sage out of this pot. And I might actually put it where we put the bedding, in the front 2 window borders. Right, so actually, there are a couple things I still want to say, believe it or not. I mean, that's why we picked the garden. I can talk for Queen and Country as a topic. But if I've not said it already, remember, and you can see that's quite dry. So we're going to give this a very heady dose of water as we plant it. So start with your biggest thing first, okay? That's the thing you typically go in with first. And we might pile that just there. That's going to flop. Now, you might notice there's a lot of rocks because we're reusing this. This is stuff that was in the garden in the dry area. It's a little bit clay-esque. So it'll hold water quite well. So we might not need to water these as much. But this is mostly spent compost. I would say it's about 50%, 50-50 new stuff and old stuff and bits from here and there, in the non-perennial weedy bits at least. And again, we're kind of gardening on a budget, so you know, you don't have to necessarily for, well, what will be, what, 3-4 months perhaps, don't go out and buy more stuff. If you don't have it, just for the purpose of this. I mean, if you've got other stuff to do that needs some compost and things, you know, go for it, by all means. But if you've got stuff laying around, again, remember, if you're getting the nutrients in via your kind of what should really be your weekly waterings with liquid feed, then that should be ample. That should be ample. Okay, so again, just probably not the biggest, we're a little bit pot bound here, not the biggest money saving tip you'll come across this week, but again, it's a, you know, saves you a bag. A bag nowadays costs what? If you're getting it from a garden centre, it could be £7. £7, what's that, coffee at Starbucks now? So, you know, it does all add up. So, you know, just take that into consideration. You might not need to buy a new bag. Use what you already have. It's only bedding. We just need to keep going for 4 months. If we've got the liquid feed anyway, then we can get those nutrients in with the liquid feed. Right, how are we looking? So I kind of want that angled out, just like that. And again, with the angling, that's how we kind of, you know, start things, you know, giving things the idea, hey, it says you're trailing. So I'm just going to give you a little help to make sure that you remember that you're supposed to be trailing. Shall we do it kind of like that? The begonia will grow a little bit. What do you think? I quite like it. Maybe the sage goes a little bit there. Cool. Right, so I realise what a mistake I've done doing this on this fire pit, because I now have to clean that. Let me show you the pots though. So these are our 2 pots. I've realised I've done this completely wrong. Because if we were going, you know, we've basically replicated the pot. But really what I should have done, because these will be near each other, is, well, over here for example, that sage needs to be there and the petunia needs to be on the outside. But you know what? It's fine. Happy little accidents. And you can see, you know, that sage doesn't look so out of place in this little kind of exotic mix. And there you have it, you know. Think outside the box, think creatively. I mean, you know, you can't put a bog plant with a you know, something that is basically living in a desert. So you can see how we kind of give an extension to what we already have there, and I think here does a little bit better. I mean, I might move these. We'll see, you know, maybe it's actually, you know, maybe it's actually better if we do it. Maybe it's actually better there. You know, maybe that works with that yellow coleus behind. You know, but we can have a look at that later. But you kind of get the idea, especially when you see it better from that perspective. You've really extended what you have. You know, again, same kind of scheme. Let's put this a little bit closer. So if we started there, and the eye works its way through, you can see this picking up on that dahlia. Right in the background, you can see the sage kind of picking up on the grass, the flaris. You can see that pink picking up on the fuchsia, because that fuchsia pink is slightly out of place. We could put them here even, framing this. Hey? I like that. I mean, obviously where you're choosing to put these pots really depends on your space, you know, where you want to put the chairs. You're kind of framing stuff. You know, so if you, especially if you want to get that kind of in feeling that the exotic can give you, you know, tropical exotic, you know, being kind of enveloped by the jungle, or, you know, whatever that means to you. I think I covered that in the previous vid. But, you know, if it's for an apartment block and you're doing this only with containers, super simple. Put them around your chair, you know, give yourself a little walkway, but when you sit, have it be that those plants are really quite near you and next to you. And for a brief moment, hopefully you'll feel like, you know, you're in nature. You are somewhere a little bit different, with a little bit more drama. Thanks for watching. Hopefully that gave you ideas, and perhaps even inspired you to be a little bit more thinking or outside the box when it comes to choosing stuff. I mean, there's so many combinations, endless possibilities. You know, just because you might be at the garden center, you see a dahlia and you're thinking, wow, look at this beautiful dahlia. I need a begonia to put with it. I need an impatiens to put with it. Any other of these kind of typical kind of, you know, mid to late summer into autumn kind of exotic annuals. You know, go into the kitchen garden area, go to the herbs. You know, maybe a bronze fennel is actually something that inspires you with your dahlia, and you think, wow, those two things look awesome together. You know, we're dealing with a variance. There's quite a lot of things that really want, you know, on one end of a spectrum, super dry, super hot all the time. Some plants want that a little bit of the time, but there's a lot of plants that just need a little bit of sun, a little bit of water, or a medium amount of sun and a medium amount of water. There's so many of those. And, you know, within that, typically not combinations that you think of. So give it a try. Hopefully this was helpful. Leave a comment. Thank you. Greetings from the future. So I was just editing this video and I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you a little post-video update as to how these pots and that tropical border are doing. So come with me. So here is the update. You can see I've put this little geranium between. So now I've really covered these pots, and you can see the begonias, petunias are going, but look, slug damage. So we're going to come out and do a slug hunt, but I tell you what, the sage, look at it, all that new growth, begonia still going on. And I think with the way that the weather has been, we're going to get a lot more value for money out of these. And if I pull out, you can see, you know, this little area. Look at the dahlias. So again, bit of slug damage. So I'm gonna have to come out and do a slug hunt. That canna has really started to go for it, actually, with these somewhat sunnier, somewhat brighter days. And you can see I split some crocosmia. That's now up there. There's a short of that on my TikTok, so make sure that you also subscribe to the TikTok or follow me on TikTok so you can see the shorts. Not a lot of people associate sempervivums with flowers. But look, 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 look. Sometimes all you need is a jazzy pot and just stick some sempervivums in it. I love that. And it's the time of the clematis. I mean, look at that. This one's called Star of India. So I hope you enjoyed that little post-video update, and you can see what it looks like. I've literally only liquid fed it, I think, once in this whole time. So just a little reminder, all of my stuff so far has been focused towards the low maintenance gardener. Cheerio.